The history of propaganda warfare in modern times goes back to First World War. But first, we need to understand what propaganda and information warfare means in simple terms. Pushing one narrative, one story, irrespective to its legitimacy, is the objective of propaganda machines. During the First World War, Germany's censored press published frontline propaganda to its citizens. British and Russians had their own propaganda going on. False and twisted information was published in newspapers, cartoons, and was broadcasted by radio stations. But information warfare and propaganda warfare took a new turn during Cold War. Both Soviet Union and United States used propaganda to expand and exploit their sphere of influence. Propaganda is generally of two types. First, when propaganda is propagated by the state for its own people, called as domestic propaganda, and one for the international community, which is called international propaganda. So both White House and Kremlin had their own narrative against each other, pushed among their own people to win hearts, and internationally. In schools, radio stations, newspaper and television, both tried and to the most extent won the faith of their domestic population. Propaganda becomes a very important and difficult tool when it comes to manipulating global image. And it creates a mishmash between countries' soft power influence and intelligence capabilities. Now let's go back to Cold War again. Soon after World War II, Soviets tried to push a soft image of Joseph Stalin in Europe, who was majorly considered as an expansionist, brutal dictator. His image was pushed as a tough but honest, pro-Western and very Russia-oriented leader. After World War II, during Cold War, KGB was told to raise a unit especially for speeding up the disinformation process across the globe and especially in America. Moscow covertly funded pro-communist newspaper and radio shows across the world. Soviets created fake news stories and published them in Western newspapers to form their own narrative. Now this Soviet propaganda was more successful in poor countries where journalistic standard was low and news could slip on front page. This created a pro-Soviet mindset in most of the developing world. This is also the reason why we find communist philosophy in many universities around the globe even now. Ex-KGB operative Yuri Bezmenov gives insight on how Soviet propaganda works. He clearly stated how as a propaganda maker they used to use the fault line in US and its democracy and use it against America.
And we as Soviet propaganda makers are trying to push you in the direction which you go yourself. Equality, yes, equality. People are equal. Land of equal opportunities. Is it true or not? Think about it. Equal opportunities. Should there be equal opportunities? For me and for a lazy bastard who comes here from some other country and immediately registers as a welfare recipient?
He explains how subversion of a country takes place. He explains how KGB used professors from countries like India to use them in this lengthy subversion process. Subversion of a country needs the demoralization of the society. And it's take one generation, that is about 15 to 20 years, to demoralize that particular generation. After that, it's just a domino effect. To achieve this goal, propaganda and information warfare are the most important tools. It is used to affect various areas of public relations, like religion, education, media, and culture. This process can be slow, but very effective. But what happened after Cold War? Although Cold War ended, yet the techniques of propaganda warfare remained same, and social media just made it more efficient. With the help of social media, forming artificial public figures and creating artificial global phenomenon became much easier. Now using this artificial propaganda asset is much more convenient and less costly. Propaganda warfare in 21st century is no more domestic or international. It's more of a global reach which is tailor-made for the entire world. A very good example of modern information warfare is use of extreme left and anti-national propaganda in India's farmer protest. and a so-called toolkit was uploaded by self-proclaimed environmentalist juvenile Greta Thunberg on Twitter. Now the toolkit was deleted very quickly, but in the toolkit one can see how all far-left media networks and individuals are interconnected, and how the sole goal here was to disrupt the government, not to support the farmers. Now this was just one toolkit for India. There might be multiple toolkits for all other countries which are not accidentally uploaded on Twitter. Now I'm not here defending the extreme right propaganda either, but we have to understand the liberal ideology was spread across the globe by West in Cold War. And now the same ideology in extreme form is used against everyone. Cancel culture is a very good example of crude propaganda warfare. It's very basic to only allow one information or one ideology and deliberately censor the other information. This is not liberal ideology, but more of a hypocrisy. Propaganda makes people lose their ability to differentiate between right and wrong information. It makes them very confused and gullible, only to be infected by the false information narrative. The reminiscence of KGB's propaganda warfare can be seen in what China does, or rather tries to do across the globe, but lacks the subtlety that Soviets had. Please gauge every information with a pinch of salt, even this video. Propaganda and information warfare is more dangerous than you can think. I'm Spearhead. If you like this video, then please subscribe to my channel, like this video, share this video. Spearhead over and out.